Tony Spilotro, the mob's mad dog of Las Vegas. Episode 16. Not just another mobster in a suit, he was the mob's mad dog, unleashed in the neon streets of Las Vegas. This is the story of Tony Spilotro, the feared enforcer who brought street violence to a city built on glitz and gambling. Welcome to Mob Truth. What was once criminal code, now rebranded to bring you the real stories of the underworld. Let's dive in. He wasn't just another mobster in a suit. He was the mob's mad dog, unleashed in the neon streets of Las Vegas. This is the story of Tony Spilotro, the feared enforcer who brought street violence to a city built on glitz and gambling. Welcome to Mob Truth, what was once criminal code, now rebranded to bring you the real stories of the underworld. Let's dive in. Chicago blood. Tony Spilotro was born in Chicago in 1938 to Italian immigrant parents. His father ran a restaurant, a good man, hardworking. But young Tony had no interest in cooking. He was drawn to the men in silk suits, speaking in low voices, slipping envelopes instead of checks. By high school, Tony had dropped out and joined street crews tied to the Chicago outfit. They saw something in him, not brains, but brutality. He wasn't flashy, he was fearless. And in the streets of Chicago, that made him valuable. The outfit's Vegas plan. By the 1970s, Las Vegas had become the mob's golden goose. Hidden behind casinos, nightclubs, and showgirls was an empire of stolen cash, fake accounting, and rigged systems. But Vegas was getting soft. Too many outsiders, too many loose ends. The Chicago outfit needed someone who could keep it tight, someone who could handle things the old way. They chose Spilotro. His mission? Protect the skim, silence snitches, and remind Vegas who really owned the desert. The Hole in the Desert. Tony didn't waste time. He formed a crew called the Hole in the Wall Gang, named after how they broke into jewelry stores by literally smashing through walls. They robbed, beat, and threatened anyone who got in the way of the skim. And when someone talked, they didn't go to court. They went to a hole in the desert. Tony was never subtle. He sent messages with broken bones and missing people. In Vegas, he wasn't the king, he was the executioner. The casino cracks. While Spilotro was cracking skulls, his old childhood friend Frank Rosenthal was running the casinos. Frank was smart, calculated, and low profile, the opposite of Tony, and that created friction. Tony's name started popping up in FBI files. Reporters started calling him the mob's mad dog. He was drawing heat, and Frank didn't like it. Neither did the bosses back in Chicago. Tony was useful, but now he was becoming a problem. The heat rises. By the mid-1980s, the FBI was all over Tony Spilotro. Wiretaps, surveillance, raids, the whole playbook. His hole-in-the-wall gang got busted during a burglary gone wrong, and many of his crew flipped. Even worse, Spilotro's affair with Frank Rosenthal's wife made everything personal. The outfit started asking questions. Was Tony out of control? Could he still be trusted? Or had he become too wild for Vegas and too dangerous for Chicago? By now, Spilotro wasn't just being watched, he was being followed. His name was tied to multiple murders, robberies, and rackets. He denied everything, always had, but the FBI didn't care. They were building a RICO case, brick by bloody brick. To the outfit, Tony had gone from asset to liability. He wasn't protecting the skim, he was exposing it. And in the mob, when you're too hot to handle, you're already gone. The Vegas ban. In 1983, Spilotro got banned from all Las Vegas casinos, officially listed in the Nevada Black Book. He couldn't even walk onto casino property without triggering alarms. To the public, that was it. But Tony didn't stop. He kept running his street rackets, fencing stolen goods, and delivering beatings. Even as Vegas was pushing him out, he refused to leave quietly. But the noose was tightening and Tony could feel it. Warning. Chicago called Tony back for a meeting. Not a sit-down, a warning. They told him, lay low, stay quiet, stop attracting headlines. But Tony was stubborn. He thought his reputation could protect him. He thought he was untouchable. But in the outfit, you're only untouchable until the bosses decide otherwise. The Last Betrayal. In 1986, Tony and his brother Michael were told to attend a meeting in Bensonville, Illinois. They were told it was about promotions, something good. They showed up in suits looking sharp, but what they got was a death sentence. Lured into a basement, surrounded by trusted faces, the brothers were attacked, beaten, stomped, crushed. No bullets, no witnesses, just fists and silence. Buried in a cornfield. Their bodies were transported, stripped, and dumped in a shallow grave in an Indiana cornfield. Tony Spilotro, once the feared enforcer of Las Vegas, was now just another name on a missing persons list. But not for long. Days later, farmers discovered the bodies. The bruises, broken bones, and shallow burial told the full story. The outfit had cleaned house. A warning to all. Tony's death wasn't just a hit. It was a message, loud and brutal. No one is above the code. You draw too much heat, disrespect the family, forget who you're working for, and you disappear. Spilotro's fall reminded every soldier what happens when ego outweighs loyalty. The real Nicky Santoro. Tony Spilotro's legacy didn't die with his body. Years later, Martin Scorsese's film Casino would bring his story to life through the character Nicky Santoro, played by Joe Pesci. It was brutal, graphic, and violent, just like the real thing. People were shocked, but those who knew the truth, they said the movie actually toned it down. Tony's name would live on, not in honor, but in infamy. A gangster turned legend for all the wrong reasons. 19,000 to 1,000 years ago, family left behind. Tony wasn't just a mobster, he was a father, a husband, a brother. His brother Michael died alongside him, trusting the same lie. His wife Nancy was left with silence, questions, and surveillance. The FBI never got him in court, but Chicago handled things their own way. The Spilotro name was erased from Vegas and feared in Chicago forever. 19,000 forever. Lord, the lives of Vegas shift. After Tony's death, things changed in Las Vegas. The mob's grip on the city began to loosen. Casinos were bought by corporations, the skim dried up. Vegas turned from mob town to tourist paradise. The age of silencers and skim rooms ended, and the era of suits, boards, and profits began. Tony Spilotro was one of the last true street enforcers in Vegas, and he paid for it with his life. Legacy. The hole-in-the-wall gang became legend. Burglars who smashed through walls, terrorized Vegas, and made millions. Until one job went wrong and it all collapsed. That final bust exposed the inner workings of Spilotro's operation. It led to dozens of arrests, flipped crew members, and opened the door for the feds. Tony may have scared the street, but his crew's collapse helped destroy the outfit's control of Vegas. Tony isn't enough. Tony believed to help the deceased, when he coursed as helping the march every fear, isn't enough. Lore the lives of state. All of the world is not a helping a tushed. This of strange 21 to sate. This is enough. Last way that it's not real as life. It in the less sign, even. When fear isn't enough, Tony believed violence could control everything. He thought fists, guns, and holes in the desert could solve any problem. But fear without respect? That's a short-term currency. He made enemies inside and outside the mob. And when the bosses looked at the risk versus reward, they chose the cornfield over the courtroom. Tony works as that, but things nothing along. Michael's a power that resongs, is remembers it's truly done. The outfit's dirty work. The Spilotro hit wasn't personal. It was corporate. Approved by higher-ups. Carried out by people Tony trusted. It wasn't sloppy. It wasn't rushed. It was a procedure. Brutal, efficient, and final. Just like Tony had done to others, the outfit did to him. No courtroom ending. Most mob bosses get taken down in court, handcuffed, tried, locked up. But Tony Spilotro, he got no courtroom, no trial, just fists in a basement and a shallow grave in Indiana. The outfit didn't wait for justice. They delivered their own kind of final verdict. Quiet, brutal, permanent. Moves on. After Spilotro's death, Vegas didn't pause. The casinos stayed open, the slot machines kept spinning, Tourists came, drank, gambled like nothing ever happened. But behind the neon lights, the city's power map had changed. The old mob was fading. Vegas had new owners now, and they wore suits from Wall Street, not Cicero. The FBI files. The FBI built a mountain of evidence on Tony Spilotro: wiretaps, witnesses, flipped soldiers, robbery trails. But he died before they could slam the cuffs on. The files remained, hundreds of pages marked Spilotro, Anthony, deceased. He slipped through the system, but not through the outfit. The outfit's code. Tony broke rules. He got too loud. He drew heat. He slept with another man's wife. And not just any man, but Frank Rosenthal. A valuable asset. The outfit didn't forgive that, and they didn't forget. Their code wasn't written, but it was always enforced. The message in the dirt. When they buried Tony and his brother in that cornfield, they buried more than bodies. They buried a warning. A lesson to every capo, every soldier, every earner. Stay in line or disappear. The cornfield became mob legend, and Tony Spilotro became the face of what happens when a dog turns wild. Vegas never says goodbye. There's no statue of Tony in Vegas, no plaque, no mural. But the stories remain, whispered in bars, hinted at in back rooms. He's a ghost that still walks the strip, and when the desert wind blows just right, you can still feel him out there, watching. The movie versus reality. In Casino, Nicky Santoro is wild, ruthless, and out of control. It's based on Tony, but the real story was even more chaotic. Spilotro didn't just break heads, he broke trust. He crossed lines the mob had drawn for decades, and while the movie made him famous, the outfit made him disappear. The power of silence. Tony never flipped, never testified, never signed a deal. For all his violence, he stayed loyal to the code, until it turned on him. He was loud in the streets, but silent in the grave. And in Cosa Nostra, that silence still earns him a strange kind of respect. Brothers till the end. Michael Spilotro wasn't a top enforcer. He wasn't feared like Tony. But he was loyal, maybe too loyal. He followed Tony to that basement in Bensonville, and he died for it. Two brothers, side by side. They lived together in the life and got buried together outside it. What the feds wanted. The FBI didn't want Tony Spilotro dead. They wanted him in court, in handcuffs. He would have been a gold mine of information. Names, places, secrets. But the outfit shut it all down with fists. The message to law enforcement: you build cases, we close them. Ghosts of Chicago. Back in Chicago, Tony's name is still whispered. Old-timers remember the beatings, the clubs, the money, the sudden rise and the brutal fall. Some called him reckless, some called him loyal, but nobody called him weak. Even in death, his legend lingers in shadows. The Mad Dog's legacy. Tony Spilotro wasn't a boss. He wasn't a kingpin. He was the hammer, sent to do the dirty work no one else would touch. And in doing so, he made himself powerful, but also expendable. In the mob, if you become too feared, even your friends start checking over their shoulders. The hidden fortunes. Tony made millions. Jewelry, cash, stolen goods, most of it never recovered. There are rumors he buried stashes in the desert. Others believe it was all laundered through Vegas clubs. Whatever the truth is, his money vanished the same way he did, without a trace, and no one's talking. Tony made millions. Fear without structure. Spilotro ruled with fists, but lacked discipline. He didn't build an empire. He created chaos, and chaos doesn't last. In the mafia, fear works, but only if it answers to structure. Tony answered to no one, and that's why he ended up in the dirt. Tony, promotion. They told Tony he was being promoted, that a bigger role was waiting, that Chicago still had plans for him. It was a classic setup, used 100 times before. But Spilotro didn't see it coming. Maybe he believed it. Maybe he just didn't care anymore. Either way, he showed up, and never walked out. Buried reputation. The press called him a thug. The feds called him dangerous. The outfit called him useful, until he wasn't. But on the streets, Spilotro was known as someone who never backed down. And in a world full of rats and runners, that still counts for something. Wrong Vegas dream. Tony came to Vegas chasing money, power, and legend. And for a while, he had all three. But he forgot what Vegas really was. A city that chews people up. It doesn't reward loyalty. It rewards silence, control, and discretion. Three things Spilotro lost by the end. At the end of the day, Tony Spilotro became just another mob name, a face on a chart, a cold case that never needed solving. He lived by the code, but broke too many rules. And when the desert swallowed him, the outfit didn't blink. No tears, no tributes. There was no funeral crowd, no grand send-off, no mafia bosses in black suits lining the church, just a family in shock and a message passed silently through the ranks. This is what happens when you become a problem. Spilotro was erased, clean, quiet, and final. XXX, a legend that hurts to remember. Some in the mob still respect Tony Spilotro for his loyalty, his toughness, his refusal to rat. Others remember the chaos, the heat, the downfall he brought. Either way, no one forgets him. He's the reminder in every boss's mind that even the most feared soldiers can vanish overnight. Bah. Mob true style. Tony Spilotro wanted to control Las Vegas, but in the end, he couldn't even control his own fate. He lived fast, died hard, and left a trail of bodies, cash, and silence. He wasn't a kingpin. He wasn't a boss. He was a mad dog, and mad dogs don't get old. This was episode 16 of Mob Truth, where the silence ends and the code is remembered. Don't forget to subscribe, soldier. Every new subscriber is one more soldier in the Mob Truth family. Welcome to the crew.